Welcome, story lovers, you who seek lessons in the past and joy in the magic of words. Welcome to a new video and a new story that holds buried secrets and invaluable wisdom. Before we delve into the world of our hero today, I invite all of you, each one of you, to write in the comments the name of the country you are watching us from now, to see how stories bring us together from east to west. And don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell, because today's story about the poor farmer and the secret of the buried chest will take us on an unforgettable journey. Are you ready? Let's begin. In a remote village where houses were scattered like loose beads on the side of a barren mountain, and where the sun rose each morning not to bring warmth but to whip the earth with flames, lived a man named Ahmed. Ahmed owned nothing but a small piece of land inherited from his ancestors, and a mud hut whose walls were cracked like the heels of his feet from walking barefoot on pebbles. Ahmed was in his 40s, his face a painting drawn by the harsh sun, and his sunken eyes held a flicker of hope that never faded despite the severity of his situation. He lived with his wife, Fatima, and their 3 children who awaited his return every evening, their eyes asking a single question, unspoken by their lips, but by their empty stomachs. "Did you bring food, father?" The village was suffering from a severe drought. The sky withheld its water, the earth begrudged its plants, and the wells dried up, becoming dark, echoing mouths. Ahmed would go out every day before dawn, carrying his axe, whose wooden handle was worn from overuse, and strike the hard, stony ground as if it were solid rock. He would strike, and the sound of the axe hitting the dry earth echoed in the distance like the earth's own moan. The neighbors had lost hope. Some had moved to the city, and some had sold their land to Manzoor, the greedy merchant who exploited people's needs to buy their property for a pittance, hoping to sell it for many times its value. But Ahmed refused to sell, always telling Fatima, "This land is our honor and our history. If we sell it, we sell ourselves." One day, as the sun reached the zenith, sending its scorching rays down upon Ahmed's head, sweat mixed with the earth's dust, creating mud that coated his lean body. He decided to dig in a neglected corner of his land, next to an ancient olive tree whose branches had died, but whose roots still clung deep within the soil. He hoped to find a vein of water or an old underground stream that would restore life to his dead saplings. He struck the first blow, then the second, then the third, and suddenly, the axe made a different sound. It wasn't the sound of hitting an ordinary stone, but the sound of metal striking metal. Clang! An echo resonated in the quiet place. Ahmed stopped, wiped the sweat from his forehead with the edge of his worn robe sleeve, knelt, and began to remove the dirt with his trembling hands. Gradually, a corroded metal surface appeared, covered with green rust. He dug around it with great enthusiasm, forgetting his fatigue and hunger, until he extracted a heavy iron chest, decorated with strange engravings he had never seen before, and securely closed with a massive lock that had no key. Ahmed sat contemplating the chest, his heart beating rapidly like war drums. Was it gold? Was it jewels? Or a curse from ancient times? He carried the chest with great difficulty and stealthily took it to his hut, hiding it under a pile of straw so that no one would see it, especially the eyes of Mansour, who watched everything in the village. At night, after the children had fallen asleep, Ahmed lit a dim oil lamp and sat with his wife Fatima in front of the chest. He whispered to her, "Fatima, perhaps God has answered our prayers, and perhaps this chest will end years of hardship." They tried to open the lock by all means, with a knife, with a nail, and even by striking it with a stone, but it wouldn't budge. As Ahmed turned the chest over, he noticed a delicate inscription carved beneath it in an ancient language similar to the language of his ancestors that he used to hear in stories. The key to sustenance is not in the metal, but on the summit of the barren mountain, where clouds embrace rock and where the guardian of the trust resides. Ahmed read the phrase again and again. The barren mountain was a towering peak overlooking the village from afar, known for its treacherous paths and the beasts that inhabited its caves. No one had dared to climb it for many years. Ahmed looked at Fatima and saw fear in her eyes. She told him, "Ahmed, the path is dangerous, and people say the mountain is haunted." But Ahmed, who saw his children's pale faces every day, felt that the choice was no longer his. He told her with determination, "The real danger, Fatima, is that we die here slowly from hunger. I will go tomorrow at dawn." No sooner had dawn broken with its gray threads than Ahmed packed his meager provisions, a few dry breadcrumbs and a water skin, and bid farewell to his family, his eyes brimming with tears. He set off towards the mountain, unaware that malicious eyes were watching him. Mansour the merchant had been observing Ahmed's suspicious movements the previous day and saw him bring something heavy into his house, so he decided to secretly follow him, believing that the poor farmer had found a treasure and wanted to hide it. The journey began arduous, with the ground rising sharply and rocks as sharp as dagger blades. Ahmed's old shoes tore, so he continued the journey with his feet wrapped in pieces of cloth. The higher he ascended, the colder the weather became, and the winds intensified, howling like hungry wolves. Ahmed passed through a dense forest of intertwined trees that blocked the sunlight. It was pitch dark even in broad daylight, and the sounds of breaking branches around him instilled terror in his heart. Suddenly, a large wolf leaped in front of him, its eyes glowing with red sparks, its fur shaggy and gray. Ahmed froze in place, remembering his grandfather's old advice. The beast smells fear. Be steadfast as a mountain. Ahmed gripped his axe and stood firm, staring into the wolf's eyes without blinking. Moments passed that felt like an eternity, and the wolf growled and approached, but Ahmed's steadfastness and calm made the wolf hesitate, then slowly retreat and disappear among the bushes. Ahmed breathed a sigh of relief and continued his journey, unaware that Mansour was hiding behind a distant rock, trembling with fear, but continuing to follow him, driven by greed for gold. The ascent continued for 2 full days, during which most of Ahmed's provisions ran out and fatigue began to gnaw at his bones. He finally reached the Valley of Silence, a barren area before the summit, devoid of sound or life. Suddenly, a fierce sandstorm erupted, completely obscuring vision, and Ahmed nearly fell into a deep abyss, but he clung to a dry tree root at the last moment. In the midst of the storm, he heard a cry for help. It was Mansour's voice. The merchant had lost his way and slipped, hanging precariously on the edge of the abyss, screaming in terror, "Ahmed, help me! I'll give you whatever you want." Ahmed hesitated for a moment, remembering Mansour's greed, how he pressured him to sell his land, and how he treated the poor with contempt. The devil whispered to him, "Let him fall. He is your enemy, and your theft will be easier without him." But another voice inside him, the voice of sound instinct and good upbringing, cried out, "Don't be like him." Ahmed extended his axe towards Mansour, risking his life amidst the raging winds, and pulled him with great difficulty until both were on solid ground, their panting overpowering the sound of the wind. Mansour looked at Ahmed with wide eyes, disbelieving that the poor farmer had saved him. But instead of thanking him, he cunningly said, "You're going for the treasure, aren't you? I know, you won't fool me. We'll split it in half. Otherwise, I'll tell everyone you stole it." Ahmed did not reply, but looked at him with pity and continued on his way. For Mansour did not understand and would never understand that the journey was not just a search for gold. The two finally reached the summit of the barren mountain. And there they found a magnificent cave whose entrance was carved into the rock in the shape of a lion's mouth. They entered cautiously, and inside there was a strange light emanating from the partially open cave ceiling, falling onto a stone platform in the center. On the platform, there were no piles of gold and rubies as Mansour had imagined, but rather another small box, a golden key, and a stone tablet inscribed with, "Before you are two choices. The key opens your old chest, containing gold enough for an age. The small box here contains the secret of life that never perishes. Choose only one, for greed closes doors." Mansour went mad, rushing towards the golden key, shouting, "Gold! Gold is the solution to everything! You fool, take your secret and leave the gold to me." Mansour grabbed the key and laughed hysterically. As for Ahmed, he stood contemplating the stone tablet, thinking of his thirsty village, his dead land, his hungry children. Gold would buy food, yes, but it would run out. But the secret of life, what could it be? He slowly reached out his hand towards the small box, and as soon as his fingers touched it, the cave shook violently. The ceiling began to crack, and Mansour screamed, "The cave is collapsing! Run!" But the stone door of the cave began to close slowly. Mansour ran towards the exit, holding the key, but a huge rock fell in front of him, blocking the way. Ahmed turned and saw a small opening above that he could climb to. He called to Mansour, "Come this way." But Mansour was busy collecting anything that glittered, refusing to leave the key. Ahmed shouted, "Leave the key and save your life." But greed was heavier than the rocks. A part of the ceiling collapsed, isolating Mansour in the darkness, while Ahmed miraculously managed to climb through the crack, carrying only the small box. He found himself outside the cave, and silence had suddenly returned. He looked back with sorrow. The mountain had swallowed greed and its owner. Ahmed descended the mountain on a faster return journey, his heart heavy but filled with curiosity. What was in this small box he had risked his life for? When he reached the village, the sun was setting, and Fatima was waiting eagerly at the door. He entered the hut and opened the small box. It contained no jewels, but strange, shimmering seeds, like tiny stars, and an old paper inscribed, "These are the seeds of the tree of life. Plant them with a pure heart and water them with the sweat of your brow, and they will give you what is more precious than gold." Ahmed felt a moment of disappointment. Seeds? Had he risked his life for seeds? But he remembered purity of heart. He went out to his barren land, dug a small hole, placed the seeds, watered them with the last drops of water in his skin, and prayed to God with a sincere heart. And the next morning, a miracle occurred. The village awoke to a great commotion. People emerged from their homes to witness a sight their eyes could not believe. In the middle of Ahmed's land, a gigantic tree had grown, its leaves vibrantly green, and its fruits strange and large. From beneath its roots, a spring of fresh, clear water burst forth. The water began to flow through the old channels, irrigating the thirsty land and extending to the neighbors' fields. People ran to drink and cheer. And when they ate from the tree's fruits, they found their taste satisfying all hunger and imparting strength and energy. Ahmed's land and the entire village transformed from a barren desert into a green paradise within weeks. Ahmed did not become rich with gold, but he became the wealthiest man in the world with something more important. He became the village's water bearer and the guardian of the Tree of Life. People flocked to him not to ask for money, but for seeds and water, and he gave them freely, just as the earth had given him. As for his old, large chest that he found initially, it remained closed in a corner of the house, a reminder that the true treasure was not inside it, but in the journey and in the choice. Ahmed and the villagers learned a harsh and beautiful lesson simultaneously, that gold is a cold metal that does not quench thirst or satisfy hunger, and that true wealth is the bountiful land, righteous deeds, and a heart that knows no greed. Thus, Ahmed lived happily, telling his story to his grandchildren under the shade of the blessed tree, the story of the farmer who sought gold and found life, and the story of the merchant who possessed gold and was buried by the mountain. This is the timeless wisdom of the ancestors. Contentment is an inexhaustible treasure, and giving is the only trade that knows no loss. Here ends our story for today. I hope it has touched your hearts as it has touched mine. Tell me in the comments, if you were in Ahmed's place, would you have chosen the key and the gold, or the small unknown box? Your answers matter to us. And don't forget to share the story with those you love, for he who points to good is like its doer. We will meet in a coming adventure. May you be in God's safety and care.